Hey, hi. Welcome to Someone Else's Movie, the original podcast where an actor, writer, director, or nebulous industry figure gives a little love to a movie they didn't make. I'm Norm Wilner, I'm a programmer at TIFF now, and this is the other thing I do. My guest this week is Murry Peeters, an actor you might know from her appearances on C and Transplant and the Parker Andersons' Amelia Parker, on which she was also a writer and story editor. And this week, her first work as a writer-director, the short film Woman Meets Girl, is premiering on the same day, Saturday, February 18th, at both the Toronto Black Film Festival and Queer Screen's 30th Mardi Gras Film Festival in Sydney, Australia. I mean, that's pretty cool. Murry picked The Menu, Mark Mylod's satirical thriller about a group of people who arrive for a special dinner at Hawthorne, a very famous restaurant where the very famous chef has planned a once-in-a-lifetime experience for everyone. If you haven't seen The Menu yet, you should probably stop listening to this episode before I spoil the hell out of it. There is no way to discuss the film without directly addressing its plot. So, if you haven't seen it, put this on the shelf until you're caught up. Everybody else, take a seat, put your napkin on your lap, and get ready to dig in. That was incredibly corny, but this is someone else's movie.
As a kid, I definitely had that experience of going to the movie store and watching movies over and over again, catching them when they're on TV and whatever. But I would definitely say that over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, I've definitely become one of those people who is like, I don't really watch anything more than once. But The Menu is, I think, one of the most recent films that I have seen a second time fairly recently. So I saw it the first time during TIFF, and then I saw it again, I think it was early this year.
Okay.
And I was just thinking back to all the movies that I've seen recently, and it just really stood out to me. And I think that was also sort of one of my main takeaways from my whole TIFF experience this year, that the movies that stood out to me the most were the ones that had something surprising about them and had something like an unpredictability to them. I never felt like I was ahead of the story or could not have predicted where anything went.
Okay.
But I'm also the type of person who I like to go into movies relatively blind. I don't like watching movie trailers. I don't even really like reading reviews. Maybe I'll read the little one sentence blurb, maybe, but usually it's oh yeah, I heard somewhere that it was on some list or something, so I'm just going to go and see it. And I definitely feel that this in particular is one of those movies where it's you kind of just got to go see it.
I'm going to just be a pure narcissist for a second. Did you see the show that I introduced at the festival? Because I got to. They threw me in to introduce the world premiere, which on the stage of the Royal Alex, which was great and weird and my first big intro. I think it might have actually been my first introduction, full stop, because it was the Saturday night. And it was the same thing. They give you a list of notes and things you can say and things that the studio wants you to say. And I was sort of I don't know that I can tell anybody anything about you shouldn't. You shouldn't know. You should know as little as possible, because even when I'm doing the intro for this episode, I'm going to have to kind of walk a fine line for all the people who haven't seen it. But the other thing that's so weird and precious about The Menu is that it's a one joke movie, right? It only has the one idea, but it's played out in all these different permutations for the entire film. So if you explain what that is, also it short circuits the whole thing. So I just basically introduced the director, Mike Mylod, and he came out and thanked everybody, but didn't actually say anything about the film either. And it was just really fun to watch him navigate that even more elegantly than I had. So how did it play? How did it play for your screening?
I went to the P&I screening, I'm pretty sure. So like I said, it just kind of...
Famously reserved crowds.
Pretty much. But I think that you could feel the energy of the space and people not knowing what was coming next and being surprised at all the twists and turns. And the second time I saw it, it was also sort of a private screening, I guess, but it was with more public audience, I guess. And it's just, that energy of watching the people around you when the big thing is about to happen. And I had a friend with me and watching her reactions to everything was almost better than watching the movie.
Yeah, I've done that a couple of times. It is always fun. And this one too, because generally what I found talking to people about it afterwards was that it's a really simple litmus test, right? There are people who thought it was mean and not for the reasons I would have expected, which was the sort of characterizations were broad or the satire was too on point, or people like the objections that I've heard over the film have been those nice people just wanted to have some dinner. And it's like, you missed something.
Yes,
Clearly
absolutely.
missed a key moment in this film.
Yeah, it's like, were we watching the same movie?
So this is a sort of an outgrowth of the Adam McKay machinery that produced Succession, and Mark Mylod had directed a number of episodes of that show. Were you a fan of that? Was there a way into this? Was it?
I had no idea about any of that connection until after I watched the movie. Like I said, I tend not to read much about anything before I see it, and then afterwards, if I really liked it or there's something about it that I found particularly distasteful, I guess sometimes I will then go and like look further and try to understand, like, oh, what were they thinking here? Who made this? What else have they done?
Yeah, so this was a literal blind entry for you. You just went to see a film.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. There's usually a hook during the festival for people to, but yeah, that used to be my experience too. You just go from press screening to press screening and just
totally,
and get whatever's served to you.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, having the industry pass too, it's just like there's so many movies and so many screenings to go to that I think I might have seen it on some kind of list of like top 10 or top 25 movies to like look out for. So I maybe had it in the back of my head that I was like, okay, just put this on the list. But yeah, not really knowing what it was going to be about or what to expect with it.
Oh, wow. So it's the kind of film that, no, that's not fair either. I'm just making all these assumptions about, but I'm trying to protect it in my head from people listening, like for people listening and not blow the experience.
Oh, for sure. Though it sort of feels like one of those, you put the disclaimer beforehand and you're like, you should watch the movie before you listen to this. Yeah. Otherwise, that's on you.
Yeah. So when did you kind of key into it? When did it start to be rewarding as an experience? Was it the big speech? Was it the revelation? Was it, because when I first saw it, it was with an audience of maybe 7 people, and every single person reacted like at a different point in the screening. And then I got to experience it again with an audience of like 1,000 people and watch them kind of murmurate like flocks of sparrows as it sort of ran through the room. It's like, oh, people would figure out things were going, and it was a really vocal crowd, which was fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that makes for a great experience. I think the moment for me when I realized really that like, oh yeah, I have no clue what this movie is going to be, was the sous chef when he came out and like did his speech.
Right.
That I think was like major turning point in my expectations of what type of story I was about to embark on.
Yeah, and it was helpful too because it's like, oh, good, it's not cannibalism. Like whatever else is coming, because that's what you assume, right? Like
I definitely did not think that.
Oh no,
that's hilarious.
I just going in from the single sentence treatment and then the presentation of all of it, that even the idle conversations on the boat about how everyone has their place and everything is a position, is just like, oh, they're going to eat these people. Somebody's going to get eaten. And the fact that surprised me that, oh no, we're not doing that. Whatever it is you thought this was, it's not this. That was really refreshing because it felt like, like we were in this wave of movies where capitalism, the wealthy, nouveau riche, all of these aspects of the way the state of the world is going right now it's kind of open season on anyone with a wallet, which fair. I don't have a real problem with it. But things like Triangle of Sadness and going back a couple more years, like generally as a rule, whenever there's something in the air, you can see the thing that started it a few years earlier. And there was that little wave of Ready or Not and Parasite. And there was a third one, I think at Christmas, 3 films back to back that were all about rich people getting a comeuppance of some sort. And now we're swimming in it. And the fact that they're not literally eating these people who are, they're probably pretty marbled. They're probably fairly tender. That was a nice reveal for me. And that it was a film that's as much about the absurdity of culinary cults as capitalism cults, and the idea that you really should just try to, live a decent life and enjoy a hamburger or a cheeseburger specifically. It's kind of not the worst moral message to put out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. So you did see Triangle of Sadness?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think I saw Triangle before I saw The Menu. And so maybe I sort of expected the menu to be a little bit more like that.
Oh, I see.
Um,
That's true. They're both about wealthy people on an island when you think about it. Like if you step back a
yeah,
little bit.
like not to say that Triangle didn't have a bunch of like interesting twists and turns, and like it was of course also one of my favorite movies from this TIFF season. But there was definitely a more I don't know, evenness to the storytelling than there was with the menu, and so I expected it was going to be more of that.
Yeah. Yeah. Ostland does these very calm studies of stereotypes. He's sort of
Yeah,
Michael Haneke's weird cousin, to my mind. Like Haneke hates everybody, including the audience. You show up and you've made him mad. But
that's funny.
Ostland, I mean, if you've seen Force Majeure, like Ostland is just delighting in picking apart the concepts of a nuclear family, a responsible husband and caring wife, and just turning them up on their ear. And the satire is very direct. And then the menu is all about understanding who these people are
Hmm.
and how they deserve what's coming. I revisited it once it hit Disney Plus, which is still a really weird place for that movie to show up.
Oh, absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
and I was really happy with the script. I hadn't caught quite as much the first time through about just the way it tips its hand towards the morals and the kind of the artificial cultural concerns that are constructed for the characters, and how as as big of a leap it is to ask us to believe that, well, I guess we'll go straight into spoilers, that a chef can be so talented that he can build an entire cult around his work that is willing to kill themselves for the concept of purity, for
Mm.
someone else's concept of purity. Um, and that's when it sort of tips into the absurd, but the absurd works in this case.
Hmm.
And if you're going to do that, you need Ralph Fiennes. Like you need someone who can do that on camera and be, dominating and insane while also somehow self-aware and human and fun. Like he makes it
Yeah.
fun, which is so wrong.
Yeah, he's so good in that. I think the entire cast was really good.
Yeah, no, it was a blast. I mean, you get to see Judith Light be terrible, but
Hmm.
quietly.
Hmm.
Um, Javi from Broad City is there. I mean, it's this fun rollout. We didn't get the whole cast here, which was a shame, but it was fun watching everybody on the stage just sort of giggling at what they were about to unleash on people, because Judith Light shows up in a room and people remember her fondly from 40 years of television and they applaud and
Hmm.
everything's great. And then it's just like, oh, you have no idea. You have no idea what she's going to do in this. And she's in a Poker Face this week or last week where she plays a horrible person. And again, just loving it. She is having the
Yeah.
best time. This is a good window for her.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So are you on board with the Anya Taylor-Joy of it all? Given the arc of her character and the fact that she's a replacement for someone, it felt deliberate that she's styled like Anna Kendrick for the whole movie. Like she's like the movie is
Hmm.
almost trying to tell us we wanted Anna Kendrick but couldn't get her, so we have this instead. And I think that's part of the joke. I don't think they really did want Anna Kendrick, but she reads weird. Her hair color is wrong. She doesn't look
Yeah.
like she's looked before, and I found that really fascinating.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, I never really thought of like the Anna Kendrick of it all. But I definitely found myself kind of wondering um just like how much of it was planned on his part and how much of it was kind of improvised once he realized that she was there. Like the whole, like when he sends her off to get the barrel or whatever,
Yeah.
it's like, well, to what extent did he know? Like, like what if that was already planned that he wasn't going to tell his, like the maitre d', like that he wasn't going to tell her to go get it and like have her like go chase Anya and like all of that stuff that I was like, interesting.
Yeah.
Like how much of a genius is like how much is he playing chess above our heads? I mean,
Yeah. Or if you position yourself with a certain effect, do people just assume you're brilliant and you're making it up as you go,
yeah.
right? That's the thing about Fiennes, who I've interviewed him a few times, and he's weirdly self-conscious as a person. And I think it's just because he broke with Schindler's List, and so he assumes everyone expects him to be serious and intimidating. But if you get him talking about Shakespeare or was one other time we talked about it, he was talking about a car, and he just became himself and sort of
Hmm.
became natural and excitable. So I think he works very hard to maintain this
Hmm.
this presence around people, but he is at his best when he's playing something that's mildly comic, right? Like the Grand Budapest Hotel or even Hail Caesar. And here, where he's playing someone who is absolutely unbending, but we as the audience get to understand that he knows he's in on the joke. Like it's not stunt casting. He wants to do this. And he makes it, I can't even picture who else they might have. It's one of those things where you see the film and you can't conceive of another actor playing the role. And I'm sure there could have been. But he is just so much fun.
Oh, absolutely. Couldn't agree more.
And then you get the wider space of Nicholas Hoult being, I don't know when he discovered he's somebody you want to punch in the throat, but he's like, he can play that role, maybe Fury Road, but he's just so good at being unworthy of sympathy.
Yeah.
And you just, take my hand and lead me wherever you want to go, because I know something bad is going to happen to him and I can't wait. It's great. Like you're sort of freed to root for the bad guys or for chaos to win, because it still feels like it's some kind of world's coming back into balance.
To that point though, do you think there are, good guys in this movie?
Well, it's funny because as a film critic, I'm supposed to believe in the artists, right? Like and you're expected. I mean, even in fine dining, it is presumed that everyone knows what they're doing, right? Like you hear about these apprenticeships and people who work under this chef and that chef, and then they go open their own places. And this is where I have to disclose that my oldest friend in the world, who I've known since we were 3, married a chef, and he hates all this stuff. He is absolutely opposed to the idea of the chef as God. And he would probably be able to compel a select group of people to do this for him. But, but he understands that this power is bad. And I'm dying to know what he thinks of this film. I know he must have seen it. I don't want to, I haven't brought it up because I don't want to know, but I also really do. It's been really interesting to watch this movie come out, and I will say that other than the murdering, there's nothing in it that isn't credible. Like they got the food right. They got the process right. They got the sense of the yes chef immediacy right. It's not satirical in that vein. And that's really, I think that really works, because you hear about these places where, you have to walk to the top of a mountain or find the greatest sushi bar in Japan is near a Tokyo subway station. It's just one guy, and let's make a documentary about that. And there's a film called Come Back Anytime that came out a couple of years ago that's about the greatest ramen restaurant in Japan, and it's just a guy with a counter, but it's the greatest not because of the food, although that's part of it. It's the greatest because his customers love him and they keep coming, and so people make a movie about him. And the menu takes that culture and just presents it normally, and it's the acolytes, it's the fans who are weird, right? Like it's the diners who are deserving of punishment, and the chef, it insists, is working at its purest version, even though he's going to kill people.
Oh, absolutely. I think in many ways it makes me think of just celebrity culture in general, and like how I think it's so strange.
Hey, it's Norm, interrupting my own show to bring you up to speed on Shiny Things, my twice-weekly newsletter about physical media, culture, and the odd streaming project. Last week, I wrote about Criterion's new 4K restoration of Krzysztof Kieślowski's brilliant Three Colors trilogy, and Arrow's Blu-rays of Nico Mastorakis' trash epics Nightmare at Noon and .com for Murder. Sign up for a 14-day free trial at shiny-things.ghost.io, or find a link at the Semcast Twitter account. Look, I have to write about movies, otherwise my head falls off. Come check it out.
Just like the thought of lining up for hours to catch a glimpse of someone or like anything like that, to me just seems so bizarre.
Yeah, I agree. And I'm, having been inside it a bunch of times over the years, it's really weird.
Mm-hmm.
Like nobody signs up for the Taylor Swift treatment. Taylor Swift doesn't want this. She can't leave her house without 2,000 people chasing her.
Yeah.
It's all toxic and awful. and parasitic. And celebrity chefs, I think, are slightly better off at this because they are, by definition, they are removed. They're behind the kitchen window. You can't get them.
Mm-hmm.
And the ones who chase the spotlight tend to be motivated by something that isn't cooking, like something else that isn't the process, that isn't the art that they've put themselves in. I mean, I kind of admire Terrence Malick for leaving a room when a camera comes out. He doesn't make a big thing out of it. He just removes himself. There's this video of him and Christian Bale talking on the set of, I guess it was Night of Cups, one of the movies he made about 10 years ago. And the camera crew clearly doesn't know who he is. They want to talk to Bale. And Malick just sort of drifts away into the background. And I thought of Malick a lot in Fiennes' performance because he has humanity. He's clearly interested in things, but he's also depressed and exhausted and sick of it all. And while I don't think Terrence Malick will ever lock me in the screening room and set the screening room on fire, I kind of wouldn't blame him if he did at this point in his career.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely can't help but think about, like, obviously my only experience with like fine dining, I guess, comes from like watching television or movies and like whatever, but there definitely seems to be, like my brother and I, when I was younger, we used to watch Hell's Kitchen together all the time. And now on my TV, there's like this free channel thing that just like comes on whenever you turn on the TV. And for whatever reason, it's a channel that plays Hell's Kitchen 24 hours a day.
It knows
I've been like, totally. So I've been catching like little glimpses of it recently. And it's just that thing of like the weird hierarchy of it all and this kind of like acolyte thing that like, as much as like there is an absurdity in the like, we're going to kill people at this restaurant, but at the same time, you're like, is it really that much of a stretch? Because I feel like the people who work in those environments seem to have like such a strange devotion to the chef. Like, I don't know if you've been watching The Bear at all.
No, I've been meaning to catch up, but I understand it is similarly the cult of the kitchen.
Yeah,
is very prominent.
Yeah, which is super fascinating and like makes you wonder like why did it develop that way and does it have to be that way? Like to your friend's point.
He definitely doesn't think it needs to be that way. You don't. What was it? You don't have to work someone to death so you can make a decent steak. And he's right. You don't, unless the steak is from the person, and even then you want them to be nice and tender, which again is something that I'm glad the menu doesn't do because it feels kind of obvious. Where it goes instead, this big baroque ending. It almost like we did an episode on The Cook, the Thief, His Wife, and Her Lover about a month ago. Peter Greenaway's film about a monstrous gangster in Thatcher's England in London who patronizes this elaborate French restaurant and sort of uses it as his playground, doesn't appreciate any of it, but pays for it because he can afford it. And the toxic back and forth between the patron and the chef and all of the things that happen as a result of greed and depravity. And the menu feels like the very graceful answer song to that. You don't have to make a big thing out of it. You just have to isolate the crooks and punish them. And I don't think anybody in that movie has a good healthcare plan. I think they probably abandoned that by then. What did they? They all live together. They all work together. They all cure the meat together. And I was just really glad when she gets to the smokehouse and we realize it is actually livestock. It's animals, not people. Because again, it could have been at that point in the film. But the showmanship of it, that's a quality that I recognized from actual restaurateurs. Like the idea that it's no longer enough to make the best fried chicken or the perfect little oyster sandwich. I'm just listing the Dutch's menu now because I'm hungry. And you have to give people the environment. You have to let them be seen. You have to let them feel that they'll be seen. Like it's all part of it. And Leguizamo yammering about how he knows the chef and how, and I am a little sorry that John Leguizamo isn't called John Leguizamo, that he's playing a fictional version of himself, because that'd just be funny.
Yeah, totally.
And we'd let it go. The audience would get it. We know that's not really who he is. But the sense that these people are there for the cachet rather than the meals, that they can't, it's a plot point. They can't remember the last thing they ate there. The experience of being the patron and having been seen there is all that they're really chasing. And it doesn't matter how expensive it is because they'll do it anyway. And
for sure. And it's like they kind of want it to be more expensive.
yes,
Like if he was like, actually, today we're going to charge you an extra $1,000, they'd be like, yes, please.
yeah. Do I get to keep my napkin?
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, and it's the price of everything, value of nothing thing, right? Where there's just this entire level, and this is the thing that I keep grappling with. It is a really simplistic satirical perspective, right? Like it's just it draws a line between the audience who you paid $12 to see this, you're cool, you get it, and the characters who are obscenely wealthy and connected and undeserving of anything that comes to them, except that they're still getting a really good dinner. They just can't enjoy it, which I like. I think that's great. We are invited to enjoy their discomfort on our side of the screen.
Yeah, totally.
And then to cheer for Anya Taylor-Joy as she figures out how to get out of it. Spoilers again, but the idea that simply expressing a desire for an uncomplicated meal is the goal. Like it's somebody said it's like Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, where the whole thing is a test. She doesn't get to keep the restaurant, she just gets to live.
Yeah.
Kind of like that. I wish I'd thought of that one myself.
That's an interesting parallel. Yeah, I mean, I feel like the entire kind of film is sort of like an admonition of like capitalism and everything that goes into creating this allure of, I don't know, whatever fine dining is supposed to represent and everything that goes into it, and the rigidity of it all, and like the almost military-esque ness of the entire system. And I guess ultimately that's probably why he ends up letting her go, because you're the everyman who is out there just trying to live the moments of life and not being so caught up in the spectacle of life.
Yeah, and I love the lack of judgment of Margot, which isn't her real name anyway, but still, that she is an escort, and that's, I think, something we're supposed to, or at least it's like a fake out for the audience to judge her, and then it simply refuses. The movie just doesn't go there, which is great, because honest work is honest work, and watching Taylor-Joy negotiate that space where she is expecting to be challenged all the time and never gets it is a really interesting aspect of her performance. Her back is up and you can't tell why. And I thought maybe it's a working class thing, but then Slowick respects that too, and Fiennes and Taylor-Joy have this great little anti-chemistry. Somebody else was convinced that it was going to turn out he was her father. But
oh, interesting. Yeah, no, my mind never went there.
No, it's like they're both English, but other than that, I don't see it. Well, he's Welsh, but it's such an odd pitch, because I'm double checking this, but yeah, Emma Stone was originally going to be the star.
Really interesting.
Yeah, 2 years before the pandemic, 2 years before production, she and Fiennes were the first ones, and I thought initially when I heard that, I heard it after the fact, I thought she was supposed to have played, that Stone was going to play Hong Chau's role, because that would have been kind of anti-casting, where you have this megawatt star as the
subservient.
Yeah, well, like in the background all the time, so your eye would be drawn to her. And Hong Chau does that too, because she's fascinating.
Yeah.
In everything she does. But then I found out it was to play Anya Taylor-Joy's role. It's like, she's almost too old. I mean, we'd buy it, but she's got a good 6 or 7 years on Anya Taylor-Joy, I think, and it would change the dynamic. But having Taylor-Joy, who is the right age to maybe be Slowick's daughter, changes things again. And now it's like, yep, I want her. I don't even want Anna Kendrick in that role. I think she's great for this.
Totally. Yeah, and I think that like Taylor-Joy has this like enigmatic quality to her. Like I saw, what was it, Last Night in Soho?
Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
That was last year too, wasn't it?
Yes. Well, a year and a half. Yeah. There's the Northman in between the two as well.
Oh, okay. Yeah, and you can sort of see hints of a similar kind of allure of like mystery about the character, you know?
Yeah. Well, her skill, I think, is that her eyes are so big and expressive, but she doesn't give much away. Like she's really good at being reserved and holding back or suffering, like in The Witch, which was the first thing I think I'd seen her in.
Yeah, same.
She just lives this misery, and it's a fantastic performance, and it's wide open. And then realizing, oh no, she can turn herself off. That's interesting too. The film seems to know it needs faces. It needs the character actor thing where people who are vaguely recognizable. I mean, I've seen Paul Adelstein, I guess it's Adelstein, in dozens of television shows and things. And he always sort of has this bland, it's not an insult. He's called upon to be the husband or the partner or the guy at the desk. He doesn't command a scene, but having him here allows you to immediately know, oh, that's who that guy is. And same for Reed Birney, who plays white privilege in every movie he makes these days. But he's cast for that, and he's good at it. So it works immediately. And that's the other thing, too, is there's this weird power dynamic right away with all these exacting rules and all these things you have to comply with. And even getting on the boat has its own conditions. And you're just watching actors not be able to own the scene, and that becomes their entire defining quality in their roles. It's really fascinating to unpack it from a casting perspective, as well as just the way it's shot and the way it's paced. It really is just like you're watching these people be slow roasted. They're just not going to get eaten. I keep coming back to cannibalism. It's weird.
Well, cannibalism is pretty hot these days, it seems.
It's everywhere.
Yeah, like I think I often find myself recently just being like, oh, I wish I could go back to the days where I could watch movies and like not recognize a single person in them and just like be lost in the film. But I would definitely say that in this case, though I recognize many of the cast members, I didn't ever feel like it like detracted me or distracted me from the film or my intrigue in it or anything. So, yeah.
Yeah, no, I think that's part of the genius of it, of the construction. And then you've got, Peter Deming, who's the guy who shot Lynch's Lost Highway, and Mulholland Drive too, I think. And he's just got this great casual contempt for everything. So it looks sleek and beautiful, and the close-ups of the food are bordering on pornographic. I mean, they're just sumptuous and impossible and glistening. And they're held long enough that you can start to think, oh, that's kind of gross. That doesn't look appealing anymore. Even the way that Margot eats her cheeseburger is, wolfish. She's just devouring it, which is great. But also, it misses the mark of a commercial treatment of food. Like it doesn't glorify the food. You're with it long enough to start to see it the way that Slowick sees it, which is just as a mechanism to keep himself in business. It's the product. So you don't come away from the movie thinking how delicious everything looked. Although
totally.
I did kind of want a cheeseburger after I saw it the first time. But if your points of reference are Hell's Kitchen, like Slowick is a much less demanding chef. He does seem to genuinely care for everyone. And maybe the slight sadness of what he's doing, maybe that's Fiennes' choice, because it's not in the script. Nothing he says has the regret. It's all about disgust. But the fact that he underplays it and that he is sort of sorrowful for everything he's doing, that was something that struck me second time through.
For sure. But that also makes me now wonder, like, if we're digging into sort of what is the backstory of this plan or whatever that he's put together, it's like how much camaraderie as well was built throughout devising the plan. Because from what I remember, the murder wasn't even his idea.
Oh, I don't.
Like, I'm pretty sure it's the female sous chef who was like after everybody runs away and then they all get caught, she was like, that the murder was actually my idea to kill everybody or something like that.
I don't remember that. Was it the one murder or all of it?
I think all of it. It was sort of my understanding, but
well, I guess a good chef, takes advice and uses all the good ideas, so he still gets credit
and takes credit for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, totally.
But no one will ever know. Well, that's not true. Margot will eventually explain it to everybody. I do kind of want a sequel. I want to catch up to that character 15 years later and see what's going on with her.
Yeah.
Like, is that a story you could literally dine out on? for the rest of your, because it would be, that's the thing, right? Like she will have cachet now because she was there. She was the survivor. So she'll constantly be getting, overtures from other chefs who want to know the secrets and how they did it. Because Slowick's a legend now.
Totally, but then that also makes me wonder, like, to what extent do you think she's really, really out there telling the story? Like she definitely seems like the type of person who has a bit of like a double life going and doesn't want people up in her shit, right?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, if she can avoid the police, she'll be fine.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no record of her. She's not supposed to be there.
Yeah. For all intents and purposes, she wasn't there.
Yeah. I guess the ex gets all the attention if she wants it. And then she'd be a horrible person and she'd be worthy of punishment as well. See, I love a simplistic moral universe. It's just easier.
Oh gosh, yes, if only everything were like that.
But this does kind of bring me, this was the thing that I wanted to tease out about your short, which is also about the presumptions of people from different spheres, from different classes, right? And the way those are broken down. So, and I'll set up the most basic premise of it in the intro, but feel free to go into whatever detail you want. But was that the reason? Was that the driving force behind it, or did it evolve out of the characters? How did you get there? How did you create it?
I guess it kind of came out of, because the short film is like, first I wrote a feature script, and then the short film is essentially like the like pivotal scene in the feature script.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because like I was itching to do a short film, and I also thought it might be cool to do like a proof of concept type thing, and I felt like a good scene that was what's the word, self-contained, I guess.
Yeah,
so that's told
sure.
like a good kind of closed story. So I think first it kind of came with the characters, and just thinking that it would be interesting to put these kind of seemingly opposite people together, but I definitely believe that everybody kind of has a bit of a duality to them, and so I definitely see the characters as being two sides of the same coin. And so just really wanting to like dig into what are the expectations that each have of the other, and how are they kind of being flipped on their heads,
Yeah. And so well, now I definitely don't want to give anything away to people, but the short is just a chamber piece. Like it's a two-hander, two people, in a house talking. How do you as a director approach something like that is just dialogue driven? The camera has to be in the right place to catch reactions and all, but the conversation is the star, right? So you're building a space for these characters to exist.
Yeah, absolutely. I think mostly I thought about it as theater almost, like try to get as much rehearsal with the actors as possible beforehand. Just to like not only kind of build the chemistry between them and like their understanding of each other's relationships, but also to just like discover and play and just like find new things and go deeper into the material in the ways that I hadn't necessarily expected when I was writing or conceiving of the idea. So I think because, as you said, the entire thing kind of all takes place essentially in one room, and so really just approaching it as like a play and seeing each moment for what it was and finding the little growth and the changes and the twists and the turns, because obviously in a piece that is just two people kind of talking and in a room, it can flatline, I think. I think it's very hard to keep the ball in the air.
Yeah, it can't be too calm, right? Like there's got to be a suggestion of something. In this case, it's attraction and fear, right? Nervous attraction. But it's interesting to watch actors come at something where, it's the thing I love about two-handers is that you have nothing else. You really only have the other person and the moment and the intention of the scene. I was some screenwriter guru saying that if you boil down even the most epic film, you realize that it's never more than two or three people having conversations, and that's where the crux of it all is. And there can be action sequences and there can be love scenes and all of that, but generally the things that drive the plot are the exchange of information and the emotional connections that are forged, and this is all about that. So every line is sort of weighted and heavy, Like how,
Yeah.
once you extracted this scene for the short, did you revise it further? Like, did you find that you had to kind of reevaluate what you'd wanted from it?
There were definitely like little moments here and there, like things that we found through, I think, rehearsal that like kind of ended up in the script. Uh, but yeah, I think the North Star really was just the fascination and keeping that as sort of like, I don't know if main objective is really the word, but just thinking about like how the camera is capturing all of it, but then also how each actor is experiencing the other actor, and that reminding ourselves that like we want to feel their fascination for each other for sure, but then it's also the audience's fascination of like, I just want to get to know you and what it is that you're hiding.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like I feel like the entire story is just about that careful give and take of like I want to reveal myself, but I'm also wanting to kind of hold my cards back, you know?
Yeah. I mean, it's like any first date, I
Yeah,
guess.
exactly. Exactly, exactly.
Although I have to ask about the bubblegum vodka, because why? It sounds horrible.
Oh gosh. I didn't realize that was so like controversial because so many people have said that.
Seriously?
But yes, when I was 19, I used to drink a lot of bubblegum vodka with 7 Up. That was the drink. It was nice and sweet.
Oh, it definitely does give us a sense of how young she is, right?
Yeah.
Because it is like my introduction to hard liquor was probably the fuzzy navel when I was
Mm,
at a party somewhere when I was a teenager, and that's disgusting in retrospect.
I know, right?
But when you're young, you feel sophisticated just being able to have an alcohol that you can
Exactly.
drink without making a face, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a nice touch, but it's just one of those things where I'm busy. I read the label and I recoiled, and then I had to get back in. Oh no, don't do that. But it does work.
Mm.
So, is the question I usually ask at the end of the podcast is there anything from the film we've talked about that you borrowed or stolen or lifted or outright or would homage? Is there anything, given how recent the menu is there anything that you will grab from it going forwards? Is there something you want to sort of homage or just full on steal?
Uh, yeah, I mean, I think just the overall experience of it that I'm like, I want to create something that makes me or, other audiences feel like that. Like, I think that was, again, from all of the films that really stood out to me at TIFF this past year, is like the ones that I love the most or the ones that surprised me, the ones that I felt like I could have never come up with that, you know?
Right. Yeah.
And so it's that thing of like, okay, now going forward, like, how do I write something that I would never write? You know?
Yeah. I don't even know. It's so like anybody trying to directly rip it off is going to get called out immediately, right? Because it's so
Absolutely.
specific. There's no way to do this that isn't this.
Mm.
So maybe just have a character who's seen some stuff. Margot
Yeah.
floats by in the background or something like that. That would be great if just a perpetual recurring character from other people's movies just finds their way into other people's work. That could be fun.
That's funny, yeah. Yeah, no, I think it's just about creating something that feels unexpected.
Well, I look forward to it.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. My thanks to Murry Peeters, whose first short film, Woman Meets Girl, premieres at the Toronto Black Film Festival and the Queer Screen 30th Mardi Gras Film Festival in Sydney, Australia on Saturday, February 18th, which has to be some kind of cool first. Thanks also to Winnie Wong. She knows what she did. You can find Murry on Twitter at Murry Peeters, all one word, and you can find the menu on Blu-ray and DVD from Walt Disney Home Entertainment. It's also streaming on Hulu in the US and Disney Plus everywhere else, and available to rent or buy on various VOD platforms. And, of course, I'm an idiot. The chef I mentioned earlier is Andrew Carmelini, and he did an episode of this podcast. He picked the Blues Brothers. Go look it up. As always, you can find me on Twitter at Norm Wilner, and you can find this podcast there at Semcast, SEMcast, and on the web at someoneelsesmovie.com. The first year of the show is still available for just $20 at payhip.com/Semcast. That's the first 52 episodes of Someone Else's Movie, 44 of which aren't currently available anywhere else. And check out my newsletter, Shiny Things, at shiny-things.ghost.io. I think you'll enjoy it. Our theme song is by The Last Year. If you like it or the show in general, please say so. Leave a review wherever you've been listening. Every little bit helps. It truly does. And check out the other shows on the Frequency Podcast Network while you're doing that. stay safe, watch movies, wear a mask if you go out, get your booster when you can. I'll see you next week.